Hello, everyone. Welcome to ITS 362.
Hello.
So let me share my screen here. Okay, so welcome to the course. Hopefully you guys can hear me. This is ITS 362. I'm currently recording the video. Just double checking there. All right. So welcome to the class. Welcome to the spring semester 2021. We are today. I'll basically go over the course, go over the information about it, the details, and then kind of motivate what the course is about, what it'll be about, and we'll go over the syllabus. All right. So we'll be using Brightspace. As you know, the course is 36200 section 1. You can mute your microphones. All right. As you know, given the current situation, the course will be online via Zoom. The lectures and labs will be held at the designated time, which is this segment from 4 to 6 p.m. So that time slot in there, that's going to be 362. The course is Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we'll have lecture on Tuesday usually, and then lab on Thursday. All right, as far as the materials, I provided, basically I use two resources. I use Brightspace for homework, all the labs, all the materials for labs and submitting homework. And then I have my own website where I usually like to keep a calendar with links to all the videos. So if I click on this, and then I'm gonna share that screen. So you can see here, this is basically, a quick way that I can, this is a web development class, right? So, it makes sense to have a website. So, this distributed application development, ITS 362. You'll find some details here, and I will be updating this as we go along this semester. In particular, something that would be important, useful to you would be the calendar. Right? So this is the calendar for spring 2021. I've updated the dates. So today is January 12th. As you can see in here, today is kind of the introduction, kind of a review as well. All right, and obviously I haven't populated this. I haven't taught this class in a couple of years, I think. So I don't really have any previous recordings or everything. So I'll be updating the class this semester. But here is the information about the calendar year, or the semester. So you can see we have class basically during these dates where you see highlighted in green. Then spring break will be the week of March 15th through the March 19th. And then final exams will be the week of May 3rd to May 7th. All right, so that's basically the calendar. And as I said, as we go along, I will be updating with, the topic title and provide any corresponding links to videos. As you know, I'm recording this lecture right now. I'll be posting the videos on YouTube so you can just retrieve them, for your convenience there easily. All right, so that's basically that resource. Okay, so let's go back to Brightspace. So as I said, I'll be using either one of these. There's a few other links that you can just follow. There's VMs. If we need VMs, you can get one VM from here from this link. But I'll provide probably a couple more links to other VMs. For this course, as far as the computing resources, you will need, usually the first half of the semester, we can do everything on Windows because it's just going to be review of HTML, CSS, but that's a really quick review because for this course, prerequisite is that you should have taken ITS 110, where you cover HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Then the focus of this course is mainly JavaScript, jQuery, and PHP. So what is, as we will see in the lectures, what is called client side and server side, scripting or coding. So this is a software development class. This is a web development class, but a programming course. The focus is not CSS or HTML, but the tools that allow you to make dynamic websites. Okay, and that basically translates to JavaScript, the library jQuery, which is a library of JavaScript, and that's for the client side. And then for the server side, it's going to be PHP, right, which is what I will be using. At the end of the semester, we should be able to build, a dynamic database-driven website that uses all these technologies. It connects to a database, which we'll be using MySQL, MySQL. And that you should be able to create like user accounts, and so we'll go over that. So that it really, what is nice about this is that it's like we're working on one single project all semester, one single thing. We're just adding a little bit to it, a little bit to it, a little bit to it. But it should be a lot of fun. Once you've created a database-driven PHP application with user account management, appropriate user accounts, then you pretty much can do anything from there as far as a website. The focus of the class is not so much making pretty websites. So it's not an art design type of class. Human-computer interaction is more like software engineering side. So, just making, the code and the logic and everything, creating good code. There's a class that follows this class, which is ITS 450. ITS 450 is called Software Assurance. I always strongly recommend students that before they take 450, that they take 362, because in 450, I usually ask students to work on an e-commerce site. And so a lot of that is basically what they learn in 362, except that they need to worry about the software assurance side of it. So a lot of it is just like, quality of it, no broken links, for instance, or the security of it, how do you deal with SQL injections or JavaScript injections? Testing, all inputs, validating inputs, etc. And so that in that course, you're shown how JavaScript can be used for input validation effectively, and all of that. So what I want to stress is that this class, there's two classes, 362 and 450. 450 does cover a few other topics as well. But in general, there is a certain continuation there. And the focus, 450 will focus more on, let's say, the security aspects of developing a website. Whereas this class, I want to stress, does not really focus on so much the security of it, because the security of it is a thing unto itself. I will mention it when it's appropriate, but mainly at this time, I'm just more focused on making sure that students grasp the initial programming elements of it, right? So just getting the code going and everything like that. But we'll be using, as I said, PHP, pretty much cover a lot of things. The only thing we don't cover in this course is Ajax, but there's another course, ITS 462, I believe. And when you take that one, that course will cover Ajax. If time permits, I might cover a little example, an example of Ajax just to kind of show you, but otherwise you will be covering that in your 462 course. Additionally, you've heard me mention that there's databases involved. However, You guys at this point have taken a lot of database courses and you will continue to take database courses. So in this class, knowledge of SQL and knowledge of databases in general is expected, right? So I assume you just know how to do SQL statements. And then I'll just show you, you know, some of the methods that can be used, but I won't spend too much time on databases, okay? Except to show you from PHP, how do you make the connections to the database? And then I will leave you guys to write your own queries, or I'll provide queries maybe, but you know, it's up to you to understand them, given that you should have that background. All right, so that's the general idea, and that's how the course fits overall. It's not a difficult class, I don't think. I mean, it's just really going through the motions. As I said, we'll start with a review of HTML, CSS, then JavaScript, and we'll get into jQuery, jQuery UI. Then we'll move, second half of the semester, we will move into PHP and just, you know, going over that in interfacing with MySQL, right? And just, you know, focus is to create, as I said, at the end of the semester, I want you guys to be able to create from scratch a dynamic database-driven website with user accounts. And to have some awareness of software assurance and, you know, the security of a website. But as I said, there's a lot that goes into that, and that's why we have another course for it. Okay, so lectures, I will create videos and post them on YouTube. So that, I already showed you the calendar, that's where the link, so usually I'll try to, what I do with the videos, actually it takes me a while to process a video once I finish a lecture. So it's not right away that it becomes available. Usually I post it to the YouTube channel, and then later in the week, I add the link in the calendar when I have time. But just be aware, usually that night, the videos at least will post to the YouTube. And then later on, I'll add the link. But they will be available, is what I'm saying.
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, my question is, I know you said that you'll create the videos and put them on YouTube. So does that mean like the recordings of the lectures, or are the lectures just going to be like the YouTube videos and we can watch them like on our own time? Or how does that work?
Yeah, so I'm basically, what I mean is I'm recording everything from like 2 minutes ago until the end of class today.
Oh, okay. And then those will be posted on YouTube.
Yeah, so the entire video, because of, you know, this whole pandemic situation, right? So I'm just posting the videos online. Yes.
Okay. Okay. I was confused. Yes, thank you.
All right. So yeah, so that's what I'll be doing, and you can watch them there on your own time. You need to attend the first 2-3 weeks of the semester because of course participation. The university requires. So I need to see you. Actually, I need to do that. And then after that, you can watch the videos on your own time if you'd like. I don't have an issue with that. Just be aware that, you know, if you want to ask questions, you need to attend the sessions. And there could be pop quizzes. I don't know. I can't really say, but definitely the exams will be scheduled. Okay. All right. So I need to do the course participation right now. So let me just really quickly, I'm going to take a picture of who's here. If you're watching the video and for whatever reason you couldn't attend, so you wouldn't be in this picture, make sure you email me, okay, before the end of next week, because I need to report who's here and who isn't. That's not my requirement as the university.
Will there be attendance taking or just pictures, just for future reference?
Say that again, sorry?
Are you saying you'll be taking attendance or taking pictures?
I'm taking attendance by simply taking a picture of the participants in the Zoom session.
All right, thank you.
So just make sure you write your name correctly in there, right? No, programmer 33 or anything like that. So make sure your name is there. I've never had problems really with people. I think we had one issue where somebody attended the class and was disrupting. So make sure you put your names in there for sure. Okay, guys?
Sure thing.
Okay, so I got your names. And as I said, I will only do this. Remind me, actually, please, because I have a tendency to forget to do this. I only need to do this for the first 2 weeks. But anyway, I've done it, so we can continue. And interrupt me at any time. This class, I would recommend that you consider this class not so much as a lecture type of a class, but as a workshop, okay? Because it'll be very programming involved. You know, I happen to like this quite a bit, and you know, my preference is always to code in class. And so I have some slides, and you will see them, I'm sure. And what I do with the slides is they're just there to remind me of the topics that we're going to cover that day. So I look at, I go over the slides. There's usually very few, actually, few topics here and there. And then after that, we just start doing examples, okay? We just start doing like, okay, now we're going to code this. Now we're going to code that. We'll be using, so there's a question here. Right, so let me get to the questions about the book, okay? And I will address, I'm getting some questions about the book, but let me get to that, and I will get to that. All right, so where was I? So we did the course participation. I've told you about that. I've told you about the videos. As I said, I will do my best to get those videos posted usually I have another class after this, you know, so I can't do it, but like at night, I will get them on YouTube. For the first half of the semester, I was saying you can use Windows. I recommend that you get, you should have Windows 10. All you will need really is any editor, like the editor of your choice. I sometimes just use Notepad++, but you can use whatever editor. I leave that to you. And yeah, and a browser. We'll probably be using Firefox. I think that's the one I have on here. So one of the things that we will learn in the beginning is that one of the reasons why you want to use a framework like jQuery is that if you don't, sometimes you do something and it works on Firefox, but it doesn't work on what's the iPhone one? Safari. I have Safari. I forgot. Or it doesn't work on Safari, right? So whereas when you use jQuery, then jQuery itself, the library has code to handle the differences in browsers, things like that. So you're always dealing with those little problems. The focus of the class will not be developing web applications for tablets and iPhones, or phones, mobile phones. Instead, the focus will be basically on developing a type of, website on a browser that you would use on a computer, Mac, Linux, or Windows. Keep in mind, for those of you that have an interest in mobile app development, we do have a course for that. I forget the number right now, but it's a 400 level course. So you can always take that, and I'm sure, to start your own apps. 440, there you go. Thank you very much. So for those of you that are entrepreneurs, right, you can always build something later. I do like, the course, basically, as I said, should be a relaxed course. Don't stress too much over it, but do the work. That's all I ask you. Okay, do the work. If you do the work, if you do the labs, the exams are going to be trivial. Okay, So I grade all the homework, so I will have a sense of how students are doing, right? So that's usually, I like to do that so I get to know where the students are. Okay, so I talked about the environment. So all you need is your Windows machine, Notepad++ at minimum, and a Mozilla Firefox browser. Later on, we will use PHP. I like to use PHP on the Linux side, and therefore we can just easily just set up a VM for that. I mean, takes no resources really. So I always have that student who wants to do everything on the cloud or on a server. If you want to do that, that's okay, but just keep in mind when I need to see your code always. Okay, another question. So questions about Chrome, as I said, the issue is, here's the thing. I will grade your homework. When I grade your homework, I will grade it with Firefox. And you may run, this happens a lot, quite common, especially in the beginning of the classes when we're not in jQuery yet, beginning of this class. Students, do it on Chrome. It worked just fine. When I run it on Firefox, it doesn't run. So that's the issue, right? That you have to make sure that it'll run on the browser that I'm using, because I don't have time to, okay, now I'm gonna switch over to see if it runs on Chrome, and then, okay, I'm gonna try Safari. I can't try all browsers until it works. Okay, guys? So that's basically the idea. But as I said, that's one of the reasons why jQuery is there, is to provide that kind of ability, right? That you don't have to be worried so much about the browsers. Okay. All right, so great questions. Submitting assignments. I'm still reading through the Brightspace announcement that I posted. So submitting assignments. You will submit assignments via Brightspace, okay? So you can see that there. Please, this is a request I make of you, that you need to be very organized about this, okay? I cannot accept homework that is submitted via email. I get flooded with emails of all kinds. And so please help me out with that. Always submit on Brightspace. If you're maybe need more time, tell us during the class that day, and then maybe the assignment, if enough students need the extra time, it might be extended, right? So I might keep Brightspace open, but I don't like to grade homework assignments outside of Brightspace, okay? Because then it's too much for me to deal with. All right, so office hours will be Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2 to 4 p.m. You can also email me, and I'll try to set up another period if you can't during those hours. But just keep in mind, I might be teaching class or something else. So we'll have to work something out. And of course, everyone at the university is currently, because of this pandemic, we are all online on Zoom, so there's no physical office hours at this time. There's also no labs. I've been told by the university that there's no open labs. I think I may be wrong about that. You'll need to double check with either Donna Alt or the chair of our department, but that is my understanding. So everything will be online. However, with this course, as long as you have a Windows machine and later on you have VMware, you should be fine. Also, things shouldn't be that intensive that that they require a lot of resources. Exams will be done online, or they might be take-home exams. This is a very applied class. We're doing web development, obviously, so the exam might just be that I ask, I give you guys 24 hours or something to build some kind of an application. Okay. Meeting place will be on Zoom. As I said, lectures are Tuesdays and Thursdays, in that block of 4 to 6 p.m. Okay, obviously you found this link because you're all here, and then so that's all the information there. All right, so now let's move over to the content section. This is where I usually post everything. So you can see, you can go to table of contents. And I believe I've already loaded, yeah, I've already loaded all the modules. If you look, there aren't that many modules, but believe it or not, these few modules that you see are the entire course, okay, the entire semester. So there just is, you know, because we developed some applications, you know, as I said, think of it as a workshop. And we're just developing one single big application at the end. Even the homework assignments have the same common theme. So the homework assignments, they're not going to be varying that much in the sense that it's always the same problem. We're building some kind of a grade calculator. Okay, so it's some kind of a grading system. You know, you enter grades and you calculate the final grade, things like that. And so every homework assignment is just really the same problem, but now, oh, by the way, now use JavaScript. Oh, by the way, now jQuery or jQuery UI, or do it this way. Okay, now implement it on the server side with PHP, as you might imagine. Right, so that will be the common theme, and you will see how that goes, you know, during the semester. Okay, so as you know, this is a very important class. I mean, I think, you know, a lot of you that are in the IT program, ITS, you know, this is one of the reasons probably why, you know, one of the many reasons. I mean, I know we have a lot of things, like there's a lot of cybersecurity, and we now have the applied data science minor, but there's the networking, obviously. But this is one of the reasons probably why you thought about it, right? So the internet. The internet is really, obviously, that's where all the business happens in the world right now. And, you know, these tools are the tools that will help you to develop, you know, websites, right? So these are the tools that will help you to develop actual real websites and, you know, using PHP and so on. This is, in a sense, the course that brings everything together. Obviously, it's not the end of it all. I mean, there's more classes after this, but it brings in your 110. It brings in all of your database classes. It brings in all of your programming classes from ITS 140 all the way to, you know, even your C, C++ courses, right? So all of those classes, databases, programming in general, 110 ITS, are now brought together, sort of. And that's really why the class has the strange name that it has, right? So it has a strange, if we look at the name of it, we go over here, right? So the name of it is distributed application development. Okay, so when you're developing applications, they're distributed in the sense that the applications are in multiple servers across the internet, right? So, and we'll talk about that later on. But as you know, you could have a database server somewhere, and then you have the server side code, and then you get that code and you download it, and then some of that code runs on the client side, some of it was run on the server side, and so on, right? So you're bringing in all of these different levels of code that work together, okay? All right, so that's kind of the idea of the course. So let's start with just talk. This is usually where I will put anything that I put on Brightspace, right, will be here. I don't like to have a lot of things in lots of places. So I really just create these modules, and the modules are self-contained, so that, you know, like intro, that's the module that we're going to cover this week, right? So whatever is in here, we're going to take a look at. And that's kind of the sequence of topics that you can see here, you know, intro, JavaScript, object-oriented programming in JavaScript, jQuery UI, LAMP, which stands for Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. It's kind of an acronym, I guess, for developing on a Linux server. Then we have, PHP and MySQL, PHP and user accounts. All right, and that gives you, at that point, you have quite a bit going from which you can develop a lot more on your own, right? You can, from there on, it's just going to depend on what are you doing, right? So, what kind of an application are you trying to develop? You want to develop a social media site where that connects lots of people, that's so popular today, right? So those kinds of things. But once we've covered all of this, all of that gives you the basics, at least the basics for you to develop that. We'll talk a little bit about how to deploy your application. So, usually that just means, if you think about it, every company out there today no longer has even their own data center. They don't have servers in their business or anything like that. If it's internal, that's a different story. But if it's for like interacting with users, customers, etc., usually the preferred solution is to kind of use the cloud, right? So they use GoDaddy, which is, they provide web hosting. Obviously, a bigger one is AWS. Nowadays, Google has their cloud, Oracle has their cloud, and so all of these are just Linux servers, etc., where you can a little bit about that, but it's pretty straightforward stuff. Obviously, those things require paying money for hosting, getting a Linux server and getting a domain and those kinds of things. Getting a certificate, right? So for those of you that have taken ITS 350, for instance, the cryptography class, you have a sense of how that works as well. All right, so these are the topics that we will cover. All programming. I want to stress every single one of these topics is programming. So you'll be doing programming assignments pretty much probably from this week all the way to the end of the semester. But as I said, one of the things I like to do is I just like to develop with you. So usually I'll do a couple, one example, couple of examples during the lectures and labs, and then I'll assign the lab, and then you have 1 week usually to complete it. All right, so let's start with the admin. So basically all the information that was in the announcement, I just moved here also. So if you click on info, I think it's a text file. And you can the same information is here. I just put it here because a lot of the time students forget that it's in the announcement and then they don't know, they forget how to get it. So I just added here. Here's the syllabus. So let's take a look at that. 362. So this is the syllabus for 362, which is this course for spring 2021, right? So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to go over this. This is basically the document that you need to look at. That's really important. Whenever I always get the question of, what's my grade in the semester? Well, this is the document that you need to look at. The grade book doesn't show the weights properly, okay? So what you need to do usually is you need to look at what grades are posted for labs, for exams, for project. And then once you find those, you need to come here and calculate the weights based on what's indicated here. So I want to stress that. All right, so let's formally then get started with the syllabus. So this is ITS 362. And of course, if you have questions, again, just let me know. So this is ITS 362, Distributed Application Development, right? Professor Calix. There's my phone. Usually the best thing to do is to email me. I think when you call, it gives me a message. What do you call it? The answering machine picks up. So I get some kind of a voicemail. But best thing probably is to, show up on office hours. Usually I would appreciate if you just email me before. You know, I'm always monitoring that email. So if you want to meet with me, you know, I can check the email and then get on Zoom during office hours. My office, physical office, is Anderson 241. Office hours, as I said, are Tuesday and Thursdays. I think I gave you the time at 2 to 4. So basically before this class. So course description. Here's the official description of the course. This course is a project-oriented course in multi-tier application development, interface design and implementation, component-based application development, and configuration of multi-tier applications. Okay, so basically what I said, so it's including all these technologies that I've talked about to develop, you know, a simple web application, but the focus is to develop it from scratch. The course learning objectives, learning outcomes, basically understanding issues related to the development of a distributed enterprise application. Remember, distributed just means that this can be on multiple servers, right? You can have the database on one server, because remember, the communication between these applications will now be by domain name, IP address, etc. You want to understand and master technologies used in enterprise web development and distributed web applications. Consider the use of both server-side backend databases in websites and web applications. So we'll be using MySQL. Understand how a framework facilitates integration of components. So we'll talk about frameworks. Define integration in terms of components and interfaces. Okay. Whenever this is talking about interfaces, we're basically talking about jQuery UI. UI just stands for user interface, and so that kind of allows you to easily create nice interfaces.
If you're talking, we can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. Somebody sent me an email. One student was asking, and I apologize. So, yeah. So, what was I saying? Yeah, we were talking about interfaces. Also, understand, you know, middleware importance on platforms. You know, what are all the middle levels of software that connect other software. List some advantages and disadvantages of these frameworks. Understand the need and issues involved in website implementation. Understand the need and issues involved in site implementation and integration. Understand the purpose of supporting services and how they work. Consider the use of cookies. So cookies are important, especially for user account management. So we'll talk a little bit about that. A little bit of security, not too much. Consider ways to increase trustworthiness of a website. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Identify web applications that may need an encrypted connection and why. So, you know, obviously that should make sense. And understand the importance of testing and tuning and mastering the technique. So as I said, a lot of this, you know, understanding how encryption works, right? So that relates to your 350 class. Understanding a lot of the security aspects of web development, that is actually covered through labs and a project in 450. But I will mention some of those things. One important thing about frameworks is that we will be using a framework for web development called MVC, okay, which stands for Model View Control. And that's an important framework. It's basically an organizational approach to web development. So I'll show you guys how that works. It usually applies for an entire project, and you will see the advantages of it later on, although it makes your code a little bit harder to understand at first you know, once you get the reason why you want to do it, I mean, you will just completely understand it. So we'll cover that as well. MVC is just a way that, you know, imagine if the only way that I can put it is if you had a web development business and you don't use MVC, then you're wasting hours of work. Whereas if you use the MVC approach, you know, you're being more efficient. So whenever you need to update things, you know, you can, instead of taking 4 hours, it'll take you 2. And so obviously time is money. And so that would be beneficial for your business. All right, so prereqs for this course, obviously this is a 300 level course, so you should have taken the 360 course, which is some kind of database course, if I remember correctly. Also, you're expected to have taken, you know, all the programming courses, 140, you know, 240, that, you know, the C# class, I think. And, you know, so databases and programming, basically, and the 110 class, right? So you've taken, you know how to create a website with HTML and CSS, right? So those are topics that will not be discussed so much in this class. We will actually just do a homework review of it that'll give you an opportunity to kind of refresh your memory about it. The great thing about this, of course, is that there's a lot of information online on web development, so you can definitely always find that. Okay, this is a 3-credit-hour course, textbook. So I know I had a question on textbooks, so I usually tell students to consult me before buying books. I don't think you have to buy a book. That, you know, as you can see, I've made all the books not required. We really are doing 3 topics here. You know, JavaScript, jQuery, and PHP. So technically, you would get 3 books. All of these are just introduction books. As far as the edition, what I would say is if you want to get these books, just get the latest edition. Or even an edition before the latest if you don't want to spend too much money. It really doesn't, you know, I wouldn't say it matters that much. At the end of the day, JavaScript, jQuery, and PHP, the basics of it don't change that much. And I will show you, right? So most of the class is demos, right? So I do a little bit of slides, but then we're just going to code. So I would argue that I'll provide all materials for you. I usually, you know, I only ask questions of things that I have shown you in class. So, you know, that as long as you attend class or watch the videos, definitely do the homework, you know, you'll do just great. But yeah, these are the books. If now, for those of you that like to read, you can get these books, or really any good JavaScript, jQuery, and PHP book. You know, go to Amazon, find one that has high reviews, ratings. You know, go with that one. And as I said, it really, for this course, it really does not matter that much. And there's a lot of also blog posts, and things like that. So books are not required. Are there any questions about the books? Does this answer previous questions?
I don't think I have any questions.
Okay, all right. And as I said, you know, the instructor will supply additional materials, which I will. Usually the code that I will provide, I will, you know, I could just post the code on my GitHub, but I usually like to give you the code as I'm going, right? So the code, you know, you don't have to take notes because obviously we're recording the video, so it's gonna be there on the digital environment, media, right? So you can always look at the videos again, but what I'm saying is I don't actually give you the code. I don't like to do that. I like to kind of force you to, you know, use, you know, write the code yourselves. Okay? So we'll be doing that. All right, so I think the next section is course grading. So that is, you know, this is the grade, you know, the percentage of grades. So as you can see, there are 3 exams. Exams are worth 30% of your grade, so each exam is worth 10%, 10 points. The project, look at the project. It's worth 30% of your grade. So as you can see, this is a project-focused course, and you need to, work on that term project. Okay. Labs are 30% of your grade. Well, we don't have that many labs. This is not like my 372 class, for instance, where there's a lab every week. This class, it's programming, so it does take a little bit longer to complete the assignments. But as you will see, the assignments are very, very well structured. So that shouldn't be an issue. Quizzes and teamwork, and I should add another one in there, participation. Okay, so that's usually 10% of your grade. That's at my discretion. Basically, just you do your work, attend class, ask good questions, participate, basically, right? And civility, all that, professionalism. So that's basically the grading. So that should total 100% of your grade. All right. Then as far as lab assignments, so really read all of these sections, please. Definitely read all of these. The more important one is for lab assignments, please make, and I've said this before, you need to, I need to replace this with Brightspace, but you need to make sure that you always submit everything via Brightspace. No homework should be submitted via email. Okay. All right, read the rest. I'm not going to read through these. You can read them on your own. Okay, so here is the tentative course outline. So basically, we will start with some introduction and revisiting basically HTML. So these concepts are really important, right? So the document object model, I will start there. Not right now, but that's usually where that's critical, right? That's critical for us to do anything in this course. And so, that's what makes web development dynamic, right? In essence, so we'll start there. Then we'll start, so that's really technically what we're covering in the first week is a review. This is something that you should have already covered in 110, and so you should have a sense for it. The next topic in the next week, JavaScript, is also, in theory, a review, right? So I've taught 110 in the past, ITS 110. I know the book that you guys use in that course. And I know that there's basically at least two chapters, I think, that are JavaScript. I always make an emphasis of covering those. And, if when you teach that course, actually, you can add a little bit of JavaScript into every topic, every chapter. So really, I expect you guys to know JavaScript as well. If you don't remember these topics, I strongly recommend that you get that, at least get that 110 book. If for whatever reason, if you didn't take the course or don't have it, get the 110 book, read through it. It's definitely doable, and it'll help you to be more caught up. But I do think that 110 book is a really great resource. Then we have, object-oriented programming in JavaScript. So that you may not have covered in your 110 class. So at that point, we kind of get into the class. And object-oriented is very important because jQuery treats everything as an object, right? So jQuery is a very object-oriented library, right? So it's a JavaScript library that's very popular. It's used for so many things nowadays, even like Google has developed for machine learning and AI interfaces for jQuery, right? So if time permits, that's one thing I would like to do this semester here in this course as part of special topics. I would like to get as far as, that data science library. and bring it into our web application. So that's something that it's very new, all those ideas, and so I'll try to see if I can work that in. All right, so so that is, yeah, jQuery. Basically, jQuery is just, it'll take a few weeks to cover. jQuery UI, and jQuery UI is just, if you've never heard of it, it's just, you know, for like creating pretty buttons or like a date picker or a nice text box, etc. So all these controls basically that we can add to a form in our you know, our website, basically. Okay. Keep in mind, you know, there's VB.NET, C#.NET, that framework on the Windows side. That's not something that we're going to cover in this class. The focus will be very specific to, you know, LAMP. So, you know, PHP will be the language of choice here. All right, server-side scripting. So where you see all of these, whenever you see server-side, that just means the code that runs on the server. Whenever you see client-side, that just means the code that runs on your client. Client is what? Wherever your browser is located, whether your desktop, your laptop, your Mac, your Windows, you know, whatever it is, even your tablet, right? As long as it runs on that client, on that machine, is a client-side. Whenever the code runs on the server, server-side. So server-side code will be the PHP code, and so we'll start looking at that. Then at some point we have Spring Break. Then we have, you know, PHP and data, you know, dealing with databases, user account management that I mentioned, and then as I said, I will try to add some special topics, which would basically be, you know, all the not new, but the popular elements of jQuery, as I said, like, you know, for AI or for other applications. I'll try to look for a few little frameworks towards the end of the semester. Okay. And that's basically it. Will be a little bit of time to work on the project, maybe the last couple of weeks. And then after that, project presentations. This class, as you know, has got a big project. I like students to be creative and be bold with their projects, right? So pick something difficult and try to build it from scratch. I'm not looking for perfection, right? Or even full completion. You just have to have certain elements in there, but I want you guys to be motivated to build an application. So if you want to build your own Twitter, build your own Twitter. Why not, right? And so things like that. So that certainly the projects can get very interesting. All right, or if you've always wanted, you know, if you've always wanted to create your own, you have an idea, right, for your own web thing, web company, web business, you know, try to do it. Try to do as much as you can. You certainly will have a lot of resources. You know, it may not scale because for scaling, you have to really, it depends on your cloud provider. That's ultimately what it is. And then adjusting your code for balancing multiple servers, but you can still build quite a bit, okay? So keep that in mind. All right. Are there any questions about anything that I've said so far? All right. Doesn't sound like there's any questions. Of course, read through all of this. These are the emergency procedures. Please take a look at them. Also, I'm sure there's a lot of information on the COVID situation. We really don't have to, we're not going to be meeting, as far as I understand, the university is not open for labs or anything, so there should be no situation. I believe, you know, you need to report to the Dean of Students if there's any COVID issues, but that's about it, okay? So that is the syllabus. All right, so I'm going to go back now to table of contents here. So we've covered all the administrative things, and at this point, I believe we are ready to just get started with the course officially. So I've talked about what the course is about. So I've motivated the class. I've provided all the details for administrative things. You have my email, you have the Zoom link, you know office hours, and when to meet. All right, so now let's go ahead and start the course. So as you can see, to begin the class, we would look at intro, just introduction. You can see here, as I said, I'm providing all materials on a per module basis. So that means there's going to be some slides, probably, a little bit of slides. Sometimes I'll use the whiteboard here. We have a whiteboard. So I'll just write on it. And as I said, all that gets recorded. But you can always, take a look at the slides beforehand. So let's talk a little bit about this, right? So what have I provided here? All right, so let's start with, actually, I like to start with the labs. It's interesting. I usually like to just show the lab because at the end of the day, that's really what you have to do, right? That week, you get a lab, you have to complete the lab, submit it to me. Couple of things about labs. I'm gonna ask you that, obviously this is a course where you need to develop, it's not like other classes, right? So you've taken a class with me, sometimes you just do a report, put some screenshots, that's it. But in this class, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. You will have to always zip your files. So here's a few things, and please, follow these, okay? Because it's very important. Only submit one file to me, all right? One, use zip because that's really what I'm using. I don't use like WinRAR or anything. So if you use one of those, what I have to do is I can't grade your assignment. I have to go to another computer. So just use WinZip, put everything in one, put in a folder, then zip it, submit it. Now, what needs to be in that folder? Usually what I'm going to ask you is the following, and I'll give you the reasoning for it. Obviously, I need all the files, right? So let's say, we're ahead in the course, and now to build a website, you had to create an HTML page, but you also had to create a CSS file. So you had an HTML file, a CSS file, and then you also have a JavaScript jQuery file. So you have 3 files, right? So you will need to provide those 3 to me so I can download your folder, decompress it, and I'm gonna run it, as I said in the beginning of the discussion today, I'm going to run it on Mozilla Firefox, okay? So it'll run. But let's say for the sake of argument, I run it, I know what I'm looking for that assignment, and it doesn't work. But maybe you did it. So what I do is I give you this option, provide also a lab report with screenshots. I will take a look at your lab report with screenshots just to say, because there you might show evidence in the screenshots that you actually did get it to work. You see that, guys? So then I will look at it and I'll say, okay, no, they got it to work. And what I will do is I'll send you an email and I'll say, hey, I was not able to run your files. Or sometimes, actually, I'm not going to send you an email. I'll just put a grade in there based on what I think. It could be a 0, but I'll put a comment and I'll say something like, it didn't work. But that gives you an opportunity to maybe show me that it does work during office hours. You can demo it, and then I can update your grade, okay? So that's what the report is for, more than anything. However, if you don't include the report and your code doesn't work, I have no way of saying, no, they got it to work. So I'm just going to assume then they either didn't have time to finish it, couldn't, or whatever reason, but I'll give you the grade and I won't say anything else, okay? The appropriate grade for that situation. So anyway, that's usually a question I get a lot about what to submit. So again, I'll repeat, put all your files in there, zip everything, include a report with screenshots. That's just helps you. Sometimes I may just run the code and I don't need to look at your report because everything looked fine. But the issue with this class is that you're developing, as I said, dynamic code. And so a lot of the time, the only way for me to know that something works is to actually go into the web page and okay, when I type the number 3, does it automatically update the grade, or do I have to press a button? You know, that may be the homework, right? The homework is that you're no longer updating grades based on a button. They just upgrade based on typing something. And so I can only assess that usually by running your program. All right, so that's sort of the what to submit. Okay, so now for this week, week 1, we only have basically these four files. So we'll start with the lab. I usually like to start with the Word document, the lab. Then I will take a look at the slides, and then we'll go from there. Okay. All right. So if you have any questions, just stop me. Actually, give me 1 second. Give me a second here. I need to turn on some lights in here. It's getting dark. Give me a second. All right, I'm back. Okay, so now let's start with this document. So I need to download the file, open it. All right, so then I need to share this document. And you can also just open it on your own and in your computer. All right, so here you can see ITS 362. All the labs have this really nice format. So you can always expect them to look usually just 2-3 pages. So here is the very first lab. So the name of this lab, I will usually not use the names like lab 1, lab 2, because then I never know what I'm looking at. So you will always see me naming homework assignments like review HTML or revisiting HTML. Maybe I'll say lab 1, 2, but it will always have some meaningful name in there. All right, so the objectives of this lab are to review how to author HTML pages, right? So you should know how to do that, but we're gonna go over that in this assignment. So I expect you guys to do it. This will also give me a sense. Think of it as a measure of where you are. So I usually can tell just really quickly by the quality of the website that I get how well students remember these topics, right? So certainly this assignment could be extremely easy for you, or it could be a somewhat involved review of material. So either way, either one of those will be good for you. So you can get caught up. So basically this week and next week are about getting caught up, okay? Also the second objective, to review how to use various HTML elements and CSS styles. I don't usually spend too much time on CSS. I just kind of assume you know it. But as I said, definitely get the, take out that 110 book if you don't remember. All right, so the tasks in this lab, as you can see, it's always going to be a grade calculator. We'll do an example, not today. Today, I really just wanted to introduce things, kind of motivate, but probably on Thursday, I'll go over an example of some kind of HTML. And then after that, we'll start working on this assignment. You guys can ask questions, etc. All right, so the task will be to create a website, create an HTML page that is going to be used to record and calculate the grade in a course. The grading criteria for the course is as follows. So you'll have to do this assessment. And by the way, there's a reason why things are done. So you always have to do these, right? So think about it. There's going to be the lab assignment, there's 10 assignments, and each one per assessment is 25 points. Then you have 10 quizzes, 10 points, exams, 2 worth 100 score, project, 1 out of 100, extra credit, 1, 25, participation, there's 30 assessments of 5 each. And then there's the equation here to calculate the weights of the total earned grade. So 30% of lab assignments, 10% of quizzes, 30% of exams, 20% project, 5% extra credit, and 10% participation. So you'll have to figure that out when you do your website. And the grade is determined using the table below, right? So this is just a standard grading. So basically here is what you have to do. You're going to create an HTML page, and it should be basically good, good looking just means like organized, right? So I'm not looking for anything too sophisticated, but make it organized and complete. Elements should be nicely aligned, easy to navigate, eye-catching, using good color schemes, etc. You're going to be using CSS for this. So that means that you're going to use external style sheets, and you're going to have a separate CSS file for all the formatting. So I need to see an HTML file and a separate CSS file, okay? And then also your markup code should be properly aligned so it's easy to read, for me to read, okay? So make sure, things are indented as much as possible so that it's easy to read. Usually nowadays, the editor that I use is the servers in the cloud provide editors for you. So I have a tendency just to use that, but you can you can find a good editor. Take the time to find a good editor that you like, and use that. Okay, so as you can see, it's very simple. This will be the focus of this lab. Okay, just creating this grade calculator. Are there any questions?
And this is being assigned Thursday?
This will be assigned Thursday. So good question. So assignment. So remember that I do lectures and labs, right? So usually the lecture Tuesday will just be, well, today I had to do all the introduction of grade and everything, syllabus, but usually I'll do on a Tuesday, I'll do some slides, then we'll do some examples in the class. Then on Thursday, we'll do additional examples, a few additional examples in the class, and then you'll start working on this assignment. And usually the idea is that if you have questions, I can help you out. Okay, the assignment then always gets assigned on Thursday. All right, and then you have 1 week to complete it. So the assignment will be due the following Thursday by 10 p.m. That gives you time to ask questions during the lab of that day before you submit by 10 p.m. Okay?
I have a question.
Give me a sec. There's somebody that asked. Okay, no. Okay, yeah, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
So is the HTML page supposed to look like, is there anything specific you wanted us to add in? So do we need to put a graph? Like, does it have to look, do we have to add those 2 graphs?
These 2 tables?
Or yes, those 2 tables, I'm sorry.
Yes, add these 2 tables. That's a great question. Yes, add them in there. It should look like this. As I said, right now, it's very open-ended, but because really it's, if you look at it, right, it's really just some text boxes and a button, right? That's really what it is. But if you look, there's a lot of text boxes, actually. So later on, one of the things about this is, as we learned, if you think when I enter your grades, I have the gradebook looks like an Excel spreadsheet, but it's all these little text boxes. Those Excel spreadsheets actually get created in a way by using jQuery frameworks, right? So jQuery, there's like a jQuery framework Excel spreadsheet, and it's basically creating that, that sense of an Excel spreadsheet, but it's really just text boxes. And so in this case, you have to build all of these. Later on, as we move through the semester, you will see that there are more efficient ways of creating those text boxes dynamically, for instance. So it'll save you, instead of manually entering every single control, you can actually dynamically enter the controls. But yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions, guys? All right, doesn't sound like there's any other questions. Okay, all right, so now let's go ahead then. So that's basically the assignment. We'll start this on Thursday. I will do an example before this on Thursday, so don't worry, just kind of get everything going. All right, so now let's just look at all the other materials that we have available here on the right space. So let me, so as you can see, I actually have a web page in here, right? And so let me, all right, so there's a zip file in there. Okay, and so what you can do usually is just download these files to your own folder, you know, your computer, and then you'll have to open them that way. I'm also going to download the slides. All right, so you can see I'm downloading them. All right. And we'll go through those slides today. Should be pretty straightforward. But now that so I'm assuming you guys are also downloading these files. I would actually recommend that you do that on your end. You can always just take a look at them. So then I'm going to, in my computer, I'm going to go ahead and create a folder. And I recommend that you do the same, right? In your desktop somewhere, create a folder, call it ITS 362, and then pretty much every lab or so, you're going to have to go to that folder and, you know, download files that I provided or start writing from scratch code that I'll be providing. Okay, so go ahead and do that. I'd recommend that you do that. All right, so now I'm going to go to the downloads. And the three files that I downloaded, I recommend that you move them to your folder. Oh, okay, yeah. So I am still in Brightspace. Hold on. Okay, so now you should be seeing my folder, I think. Okay, so but do this on your own. So you can see I have the slides in here. I downloaded a week 1 materials, right? So downloaded week 1 materials. So you can take a look at it. Basically, we have a simple web application, right? You can see that, so this is the example that we, sorry, I think I'm not sharing.
No,
Can
you're
you guys see
sharing.
the website I just opened?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right, so it's very simple. It just says ITS 362 textbooks, but this is the example that we will work on Thursday, okay? Just a simple one. And then, so definitely download those. And then I also have, just to show you a little bit of PHP. All right, so this is PHP code. You should be seeing this, I think, also. Yeah. All right, so this will be, I just kind of wanted to show you that, for instance, the idea of this class is that we have, by the end of the semester, you'll be able to create, although this is not written in MVC, you can see how a lot of technologies can be combined, right? So I have, I have a HTML, which is HTML tags, but within it, I have embedded PHP code with its appropriate tags. I'm basically making a database connection right there. And then I also have, some additional code in PHP. Okay, so we'll learn a little bit about this. This has to run on the server side, so it won't run here, but at least you can see, you get an initial look at what PHP looks like, okay, and how it can be combined in various ways with actual HTML code. So that's really the goal of this. We won't be working on this just yet. Okay, and so that will be the example. So certainly get these files ready for Thursday. Take a look at this code if you'd like, just to kind of get a feel for it. And then otherwise, the homework assignment, as you can see for this week, I haven't provided anything, actually. There's no starter code, if you will. I think I have to open it again. There's no starter code for the homework. There's only starter code for this. But you will need, you can see this is a little bit dynamic. I hover over something and I can see it, right? So we'll be playing with those types of exercises. Also, you'll need to get some images because these are actually images. But that will be the example on Thursday. All right, so now let me switch back to, now that we've seen the materials in there, let us switch back to Brightspace. Okay, so I'm back. So homework examples for Thursday, and then finally now the slides. All right, so let's take a look at the slides. I think we can just, no, that's not. Okay. Download. All right, here we go. So now I'm opening the slides, so I'm going to share them. All right, so now I'm sharing the slides. All right, so the topic, as I've kind of gone over all this at this point. These slides, definitely, they're meant to be a review, so I would suggest that you read through them, okay? As you can see, the title of it is, so I just started the slideshow, so the title of it is Revisiting HTML, right? So this is your review of topics. So as you know, HTML usually is we can think of it as an extension of a file, and then within that file, you need to write code in a specific way, following a specific syntax. Usually we use we use tags basically, and the tags are interpreted by the browser to display the information in that file in a certain way, right? So that's the definition. All right, so that's what these slides are going to be about, just kind of review of that, and then it'll just list out some of the important concepts, obviously a tag, etc., to kind of remind us of what things are. So HTML revisited, HTML document structure, HTML elements and attributes, and then of course a little bit about CSS, CSS selectors, and CSS properties. So CSS is cascading style sheets, of course. What does HTML stand for?
Hypertext markup language.
Very good, very good. That's right, hypertext markup language. Very good. Okay, so basically then, the tiers as you develop a website, you know, for presentation, right? So how things look. So we have content, the HTML, the presentation, you know, the color scheme, etc., CSS, and then JavaScript, the behavior, the actions that take place, right? So there, you know, JavaScript, you can create, you know, for loops and if statements and arrays. So it provides, you know, that behavior and actions that you can have in place. As Angel said, so HTML is the hypertext markup language proposed and drafted by Tim Berners-Lee in the 80s and 90s, basically to facilitate accessing linked documents residing on different computers, and used to create documents with links to other documents, web pages. And so we all know that HTML documents are intended to be rendered and viewed within web browsers, right? So remember, the web browser is actually a very important tool, the software that will interpret whatever is in that text file and will render it appropriately. All right, so URL is a uniform resource locator. Very important. You know, links, basically, we think of them as links. So used to locate resources on the internet, where the resources can be images, you know, all kinds of things. And it follows a specific format, right? So that's the thing that that we really need to understand, and whenever we're developing, right, is these structures. There's different protocols, HTTP, HTTPS, and so on. For the protocols allows us to access these URLs. All right, and so on. So that's the definition of a URL. Structure of HTML document. This was influenced by other protocols, of course, but basically a website is a hierarchical tree structure. Okay, so, you know, really we have, and that usually falls, whenever we think of that structure, we think of something called DOM, or the document object model. Okay, so that document object model allows us to think of, you know, the browser and the contents of the browsers as objects. So you can think of, you know, a window, and then that window could have a frame, can also have history, location, and the document itself, right? So remember that the document is, in fact, that HTML page. But this is important in particular when you're using JavaScript or jQuery, and you start to access the different elements of the page, because you want to change them in real time. Okay, and so that's where the importance of this becomes very important. So we use tags to reference all these things, right? To indicate, we basically use an encapsulation approach of tags. So we have a set of tags, opening tag, closing tag, and then they encapsulate the content. So we have within a document, we can have things like layers, links, images, forms, areas, you know, cookie, you know, all kinds of things. Within the form, we can have, or within the structure, the body really of a page, we can have, you know, text area, text, you know, buttons, submit buttons, and so on, right? So this is not a all-inclusive list. This is just kind of to give us a big picture of this, okay? The structure of HTML document, as you know, you might have some kind of document type declaration, depending on, you know, the version of HTML that you're using. You have the elements, right? So different tags. So usually we have a start tag and an ending tag, for instance, or like an anchor tag. Empty elements also. So basically we have a lot of tags. Now, again, remember, this is a topic that's covered in the 110 book. So you should know those tags, okay? And then attributes are associated with elements. you know, so that you can change aspects of a specific tag because it is object oriented. Right, so here is, you know, a little example of course, the structure. So you might have like HTML, open HTML, close HTML. Usually then that's divided into the head section and the body section. You can provide information here. Usually our jQuery and JavaScript links will be here, the CSS also. And then in the body is where you can specify all the different tags that you want to use, okay? So this will be what we'll be doing this semester is, you know, accessing these tags and modifying them mainly for the client side with JavaScript, and then how to deal with them on the server side for PHP. Honestly, that at the end of the day is what we will be doing. All right, so you can see here the hierarchy of elements. You have your HTML tag, which can be divided into head section, body section. Then the head section usually has some associated tags like the title, the meta tag, the link tag, the script tag. And then in the body, you can have tables, paragraphs, anchor tags, image tags, headings. You can also have forms, right? And then those tags, such as the form or the table, can have their own elements like, you know, table data, table row, table head, and so on. Right? So that's just, you know, HTML. You can see another example here of that, right? You have the two major sections that you think about in an HTML website, the head section and the body section. As we start learning MVC, this will be a little less obvious, but it still holds, right? It still will hold. That we'll take this approach. It'll just be a little bit different. Okay, you can see here. Here's another example of the elements. Right, so HTML elements. So we'll have table, image type, media, forms, text elements, and many others. Okay. This, again, I'm not going to go through this. You can just read through it, but you should be familiar with a lot of these tags and how they are using. You know, we will also look at divs in particular, classes as well. And actually, this will be important because it'll give us power to basically modify dynamically our websites. Here's just some more elements. I already mentioned these. Again, this is just listing out all the tags that are available. So you'll get the practice with some of these in your assignment. Just a few more here and there. And there are many right there. There's always, some of these become deprecated over time. Newer versions of HTML have newer ones, etc. And then there's always a core of tags that just always work. Okay. Same thing here. I'm not, as I said, I'm not going to go over these. These are topics of chapters in your 110 course. All right, image media tags. All right, table elements, just creating a table. So you'll certainly be creating a couple of little tables for the homework assignments. So you'll probably be using some of these elements. Okay, iframes and other things that allow us to group information. So there's those tags as well. All right, so HTML common attributes. So besides element type specific attributes, there's a set of common attributes that may be applied to all HTML elements. There's also event attributes used to capture an event and trigger an action with a client-side scripting language such as JavaScript. This in particular, events, will be something that new, possibly, right? So something new that we will be covering this semester. So the applications that we're going to be developing are going to be very event-driven. So what that means is that, you know, something will happen, some action, and really it's not just pressing a button. It can be a lot of events. Okay, so a lot of the course will be that, you know, having the controls that trigger the event, and then having a function, you know, something in jQuery, etc., that captures that event and then does something. So a lot of, you know, the applications, if not all the applications that we're going to be focused on this semester, will be on that basic idea of event-driven, as this implies, event-driven properties of triggering an event and then capturing an event. And so we'll spend obviously a lot of time seeing how that works. Okay. So the core attributes, ID, class, style, basically, some of the key ones that we will be using. The event objects, things like on blur, on change, on click, on key press, on load, on mouse down. You know, I'm not going to read all of them, on submit. But a lot of these, as I said, they already exist. And then we're just going to see how jQuery, what I would say about jQuery is the following. jQuery is like, it's a library of JavaScript, but at the same time, it is also an interface. I would call it an interface that allows you to, through that jQuery, you more efficiently access a lot of things in the background. So for instance, a lot of these events in HTML. Okay, so it's just very object oriented, as we will see later on, and it's an efficient. It's more than just a library. It's also there to be an interface to make your programming more efficient. So it's also, for instance, intuitive, in the sense that sometimes you almost, once you have a sense of jQuery, you can almost anticipate, oh, I wonder if I could say this and would it work? And a lot of the time it does, even if you've never seen that before, because jQuery is meant to be like that. It's very intuitive, or tries to be at least. All right, so that's really the idea. So these are some of the concepts that we will explore. And then, of course, after HTML, there's also CSS, the cascading style sheets that allow you to basically do the formatting. This is the recommended way to control the presentation layer in a web document. So this is also important for the approach of MVC, the model view control model that we will follow. But you know, there's a lot of benefits, right? So all styling is kept in a limited number of style sheets. So whenever you update something, it's a lot more efficient. Removing all, the style sheets get cached after the first request and can be reused on every page on the site. It doesn't have to be downloaded every time, and so on. So there's a lot of reasons why you want to do this. I would say one of them is just for organizational purposes. It's a good separation. So I won't really, as I said, this is something that was covered in your 110, so we will not be covering this in this course, except, you know, review it, I would recommend, basically. Now, that being said, I have a tendency to keep CSS very simple. And a lot of the time, I actually will just provide. You probably saw in, if you've looked at some of the folders, I've actually provided the CSS already, because this is not really like an art class or anything like that. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the little details of CSS, only as it relates to really to our goal here of developing dynamic applications, web applications. All right, so there, as you know, just a few things about cascading style sheets. They're divided into 3 ways of looking at them: external style sheets, internal style sheets, and inline styles. Inline styles are the least preferred because you're basically putting in the style in the HTML code. The preferred way of doing things is the external style sheet. I would recommend that you do it that way, where you have a separate file and then you're just defining everything in there. Okay, so that's pretty much all I will say. Get a book reference of all the styles so you have examples. So it just makes your coding a lot more efficient. So this is just an example of how to do, setting rules in CSS. As you know, you usually have the tag in question, like H2 would be heading 2. And then within curly brackets, you're going to specify the color, right? And you're also going to specify something like the font weight, but you can specify a lot of things. Notice things are separated by semicolon. Well, one thing I will remind you of when it comes to HTML and JavaScript. JavaScript is very, very unforgiving for typos. Usually you have one missing semicolon or something and the whole thing breaks, right? So remember that so that you're careful with developing your code. This is a recommendation I'm sure you've heard in a lot of your courses. When I've taught 140, I give this recommendation myself. When you're developing code, don't write it from beginning to end, right? Do it incrementally. Write a little, run it. Write a little more, run it, right? So that you're always aware of what's going on and you don't introduce any errors. All right, and then these topics like CSS selectors and properties, these are actually important for our course, and we will take a look at them later on because they are actually, jQuery in a sense takes this approach of having selectors, which is a pattern that matches particular parts of the HTML document. As you will see, jQuery, it's called jQuery if you think about it, because in a sense, it's JavaScript query. And this is why I keep saying it's kind of like an interface, because in a sense, query just means that you're searching, right? You're searching a specific pattern. You grab the object through jQuery, and then that object through the events, properties, etc., can be modified. Okay, guys? So that's an important issue there. All right, so we're almost out of time. Yeah, I will cover some of these things, whatever's left of these topics on Thursday. So the plan on Thursday is I'll finish up these slides. I will also do the example that I mentioned, go over that example, and then we'll just start working on the homework. Your assignment between today and Thursday, get Mozilla Firefox installed if you haven't done so already. Make sure you install Notepad++. For now, maybe VMware, although we won't start using the Linux VM until after spring break, probably. So we won't need that. You will have to do some configuration then to get phpMyAdmin installed and PHP and all that. But until then, for right now, or at least for the first half of the semester, I think either go look for an editor, get or get Notepad++ and install Mozilla Firefox, and that should be enough, if I remember correctly, to get going this semester. Okay, otherwise, we can stop here for today. I'll stay a couple of minutes today, and then you can, if you have any questions. Otherwise, we'll stop here for today, and I will see you guys Thursday.
Okay, cool. See you Thursday.
Yeah.